Okay, let's talk about an agency that's at the absolute center of a political firestorm here in the U.S. I'm talking, of course, about ICE. You've probably seen the headlines, you've definitely heard the debates, but what is really going on with this incredibly powerful and, let's face it, controversial organization?
Lately, it feels like the conversation around ICE has just hit a boiling point, right? I mean, the agency is facing some really serious accusations. We're talking about aggressive paramilitary-style tactics. And even more tragically, it's been linked to fatal encounters that have put its every single move under a microscope.
So how do we make sense of all these headlines? Well, we've got to peel back the layers. We need to ask, what is ICE really? Where did it even come from? And maybe most importantly, how did it end up right at the center of this incredibly explosive moment in American life?
All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the current storm, then get into what ICE actually is, look at its political transformation, check out the arguments on the streets, and finally, talk about the crossroads the agency is facing.
Okay, let's jump right in. It really all starts with these recent events that have thrown ICE directly into the national spotlight and, honestly, have just sharply divided the country.
2. Just 2. That's the number of American citizens who recently died in fatal encounters with ICE agents in just one city, Minneapolis. And you better believe those 2 deaths ignited a national firestorm.
The names were Renee Good and Alex Pretty. And their deaths, well, they completely changed the conversation. Suddenly, this wasn't just a debate about immigration policy anymore. No, this was about the use of federal force against civilians right here on American soil.
So, that brings us to a really fundamental question. What is ICE? To get to the bottom of this conflict, we've got to look at how it's structured and what it was originally created to do.
So, ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It wasn't just created out of thin air. It was actually formed back in 2003 as part of that massive government shakeup after 9/11. The whole idea was to bring immigration, customs, and national security all under one roof, to try and prevent the kind of intelligence failures that led to the attacks in the first place.
And this is where things get really interesting and, frankly, a little complicated. You can almost think of ICE as having 2 totally different personalities. On one side, you've got ERO, that's Enforcement and Removal Operations. This is the part of ICE we all see, right? The agents making arrests. But then you've got this other side, HSI, or Homeland Security Investigations. This part is a lot more like the FBI, going after huge transnational crimes. And understanding this split, it is absolutely crucial to getting what this whole debate is about.
Now, of course, like any big federal agency, ICE didn't just stay the same. Oh no. Its mission has been dramatically reshaped by the political winds over the last couple of decades.
And you can really see this evolution play out across different administrations. Under Obama, the official focus was on immigrants with criminal records. Then you get to the first Trump administration, and boom, the mission expands dramatically to target pretty much any undocumented immigrant. The Biden years saw a push to refocus priorities, but then the second Trump term just hit the accelerator on that expansion again, leading to this much more visible, much more assertive style of policing out on the streets.
And that, right there, is the crucial shift. ICE basically went from being a kind of administrative tool for enforcing laws to becoming this incredibly powerful political symbol in the nation's culture wars. Its actions were no longer just seen as law enforcement. They were seen as part of a much bigger political agenda.
So this whole political transformation, it brings us right to the heart of the conflict today. Those really passionate arguments we're hearing from both critics and defenders of the agency. Okay, so on one side, you have the critics, and they're pointing to some, what they call, really alarming trends. They're talking about operations with masked, unidentified agents, saying it's basically militarizing domestic policing. They're questioning why asylum seekers with pending legal cases are being arrested. They're pointing to the use of internal administrative warrants when a judicial one might be required, and they're asking, hey, are the thousands of new agents being hired getting enough training?
But then you have the other side of the coin. Supporters, and look, even a lot of critics, will agree that the agency does perform some absolutely vital security functions. They point to that HSI division we talked about, the one fighting human trafficking, taking down major crime syndicates, and stopping the illegal flow of weapons. And this, for sure, is the side of ICE that most of us just don't see. So all of this, the controversy, the 2-sided mission, the politics, it brings the whole country to a crossroads. And it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. What is the future of this incredibly powerful and divisive agency?
Look, from what we can tell, the idea of just abolishing ICE seems to be off the table.
Why? Well, it's just too big, too deeply woven into our national security fabric. So the real question isn't if ICE is going to exist, it's what kind of agency it's going to be.
And that leaves us with this final massive question. Is ICE going to function as a professional law enforcement agency, with clear rules, proper oversight, and public trust? Or is it going to continue down this path of being seen as a political instrument used to push a specific agenda and in the process risk making the divisions in this country even deeper? That, right there, is the core question at the very center of this storm.